Welcome back to another episode of a very British space program. You get to see the launch of something new. It looks like a Faraday, but it's on a blue night. What's going on? Well, that is correct. This is a Faraday, but this is a Faraday 3. This is the first test flight of the Faraday 3, the UK's next big step into the stars. And it looks just like a Faraday 2. However, you will notice the grey section below the capsule. That looks new, doesn't it? Well, that is not part of the Blue Knight rocket. That is part of the Faraday 3. The Faraday 3 is designed for longer duration in space and longer distance travelled in space. It is laden with Delta V. It is laden with our latest technology. It is basically running on a lot of the technology that we've been using for our interplanetary probes. We've actually transferred to this. We've actually used some of the technology from the Enlightenment program, some of the solar technology. We've improved our fuel cell technology slightly to try and help this. And this is our inter-Earth system craft, shall we say. It has the ability to, well, we believe, to stay in space for about 14 to 15 days. We're not entirely sure about that. We're going to be working on it partly in this flight. So it has the ability to stay in space for quite an extended period of time. It has docking capability at the bottom that you will see in a moment. And it's generally just going to be the workhorse, we think. It's going to be the sort of, if you don't fly a Faraday 2 because you need a bit more, you're going to have a Faraday 3 for it. You will notice its design actually bores out of the back there. That is so that we can actually have forward-facing thrusters, so that we can actually control forward and reverse thrust a little bit better than we've had previously. And it also provides a little bit of a bigger space for us to put in some storage for fuel and for food supplies, things like that. It also has built into it some wonderful solar panels. So there you go. It has some of the most advanced row engines we have. These things have got multiple relights now, so they're becoming a bit more improved, shall we say. We do have a model of this that doesn't use row engines, but the row engines give us the grunt needed to actually do stuff. And there you go. There we are. The solar panels are deployed. So this is a combination of solar panels and fuel cells. The solar panels will take most of the power when we enter into the dark side. The fuel cells will back it up and act as a backup just in case we have a solar panel issue. And the reason for that is this craft is not just designed for low Earth orbit, it is designed to go out to the moon. That is right, we are heading towards the moon today. This is not going to be a close flyby though. It's not going to complete any sort of paid for missions. This is just going to be a slip into the sphere of influence of the moon and then back out again. Now it will be probably one of the longest flights this craft will ever do because of that, because we're actually going to be coming beyond the height of the moon when we do this. Our crew today is pilot Janet Payne and engineer Barry Slater, and of course this is the 28th of July 1965, just in case you want to put that down in your notebooks as to the date that the human race first entered the sphere of influence of the moon in a craft and looked down upon it. Now they're going to be quite a distance from it, I should say. You can see the actual capsule on the top there is pretty much unchanged from the Faraday 3, and in fact very, very similar to the original Faraday 1, because we've not really changed much of it. The Faraday 2 is the big jump in capsule or sort of coloration and thruster placement. What we've actually done is just we've changed the section behind the capsule, so we've uprated the engine. We've given it proper engines. Let's be entirely honest. We've uprated life support systems. We've continued that docking to the rear end. So this craft does have the ability to dock through its rear end. We do not have anything docked to it at the moment, obviously. How we're going to use this to dock, we will tell you in the future. There are plans afoot. Of course, the Americans and the Russians will be no doubt intrigued by the idea of us docking our craft in different places. So you can see here, we're just using the RCS on board just to do a little bit of control, because we have those really nice forward and reverse thrusters that aren't having to sort of fire up at funny angles and stuff. They're actually positioned forward and reverse. Now we have lovely orientation control there. Look at that. Really precise control on this craft. It is able to orientate itself. It's been perfected. This is the pinnacle of the Faraday program. It's as good as we're actually going to get, we think. So there we are. Look at that. absolutely superb. Passing from the Earth, you can see the Aurora Australis, I believe that is probably in the southern hemisphere there, as we move away from Earth. This craft will be spending quite a bit of time out in space, and it's going to be doing some science while it's out there. Not much, just a little bit of science out there. It's not going to go into orbit around the moon. It's not designed to do that, and in fact you can see just how much further out we're going from the moon. We're actually we're going to fly a significant distance beyond the moon and then come back, so this is going to be a lot longer. This is actually although it's a test flight, the original plan for this mission was for it to just go to moon altitude and then come back. We actually got this encounter and we thought, you know what, just send the crew, just send them, it's the same thing. In reality, we really shouldn't have done this because it stretched this craft. This craft was for food and oxygen, it was tight, particularly oxygen. And there you go, you can see the craft just beautifully positioned between the Earth and the moon there. An absolutely stunning picture. We love that, it's absolutely beautiful. And this of course we can't get a picture of because we don't have anything to take pictures, but just imagine if there was something there. Imagine we throw a probe out with a camera on. That's what it is. But that is an absolutely stunning representation of what this craft is all about. It is about going to the moon, and that's what it's there for. So this is about as close as the crew are actually going to be getting to the moon, though. They're going to be coming reasonably close, but that's it. They do a little bit of EVA just to, throw out some trash, and what they're actually doing is you're going to deposit some random items that we can just track with radar, telescope, something like that. But we're just going to track them, see what happens when they go near the moon, just to further understand the moon's gravity and things like that. And also we're just checking the effect of being near the moon on EVAs, and also because they just wanted to be able to say they'd done it. If I'm entirely honest, I think Janet Payne was just sort of eager to be the first to do something, and she was sharing the whole going to the moon thing with Barry. So then she wanted her own thing. So we're not stopping at the moon. We're flying on by. We're flying on back, and this craft is going to be returning to Earth, and that is where the problems start to begin, because, as I said earlier, this is probably the longest flight this craft will ever do on its own. And on its own is important because, of course, we have a docking port there, so think about that. This craft is designed to spend a reasonable amount of time in space, but it's about 2 weeks maximum. Now, the crew have been on board for about 12 days at this point, and they've been in the sun. And one of the things about that is that when they're in the sun, the fuel cells don't need to provide any electricity. So we actually had to shut down one of the solar panels on the way back, so we can activate the fuel cells to get enough oxygen, because we were actually running out of oxygen. You see there, we just had to check the thing there, just to change that. Just don't worry about that. So anyway, we're going to come down into the atmosphere now. We were undecided about the best way to do this. We decided this is probably going to be the most aggressive re-entries that we could possibly ever have, and I think that we decided to do a skip on it. Now, skips are often considered to be a bad idea, but we have been doing a lot of atmospheric skipping in the past. We have a history of doing atmospheric skipping. You can see here we've decoupled the service module there, and that's going to blast off, get out the way. With our original space planes, we did a lot of practice on skipping, so we're quite happy as a program on doing a bit of skipping. The concern is if we don't have enough electricity or life support for the skipping. Now, we know this capsule actually has about a day's life support electricity in it, so we're not too worried about that. But we're trying to get as much heat out of this, much energy out of this as possible to really bring this thing down, because we want to go probably, I think, to about 66, 65 kilometers down. Should take a nice big chunk out of this re-entry, and then it'll allow us to come back out of the atmosphere reasonably unscathed. You can see there was no real heating issues there. Our RCS is coming on just to position the craft nicely. Stress is built up quite considerably in the cabin, and it was high prior to the actual entry interface, atmospheric interface, shall we say. These crew have actually been cooped up in that capsule for an extended period of time, and we wouldn't want to do that in the long term. I think ideally, yes, we could leave crew in this capsule for 2 weeks, but that's a long time. That is a long time to be in such a small capsule. Anyway, they come around the planet, and then they're coming in for their re-entry again. And of course, that skip was about an hour. They spent an hour, 2 hours on their skip, so it's pretty much just a slightly elongated low Earth orbit approach. It was not a big thing. They're used to that. The craft is designed to survive that amount of time on its own. We don't have an issue. It's got the fuel to reorientate itself, so it's completely expected. We don't have an issue. Not at all. No problems here. So we're coming through the atmosphere now, and this is it. We've got a crew that have been around the moon. They have not stepped foot on the moon, they've not orbited the moon, but they have been close to the moon. They've looked upon it in a way that no human has ever done before, with their naked eyes looking upon the moon in its hugeness. So huge, nobody else has ever seen it that close up. And they took pictures. Obviously they took pictures, and they're going to bring them back. They're going to be bringing them back, and we're going to sell them. We're going to sell them to everybody. So yeah, coming through the atmosphere there. Parachutes deploy. Almost, the fingers are crossed right now. This is the final step. Coming down into the North Atlantic, all the way down into the water, ever so slowly. The sun in the background, and we are down. Meanwhile, it's been a while. It's been a while actually. This launch takes place about 2.5 weeks later. This is the 18th of August 1965. We're moving on through 1965 very quickly. We have a few more launches in this year, but not in this episode. This is the final launch of the episode. So this is another launch of the Enlightenment program. This is Enlightenment 2. And it is going to basically be going up again into that polar orbit, and it is going to continue to act as a monitoring device for the Earth. We're going to look at the environment and the atmosphere. That's what it's for. No cameras over Moscow or Washington or New York, Colorado, or anywhere like that. There's absolutely nothing like that. Definitely none over China. Nothing doing with the Chinese, not at all. Now this thing is purely humanitarian in its approach. That's all it's for. And yeah, it's gonna basically join its sister craft in orbit, and we have a few of these lined up. And the idea is that we're just going to map the planet. We're going to map the planet to truly understand the world that we live in. Obviously, the flat earthers are arguing that none of the stuff that the British space program is doing, the UK space program is doing, is real. They say the Earth is flat. We've sent them pictures. They say, look, the pictures are flat. And we say, well, no, but you can't make a round picture. So then we send them a globe, and they say, you've just made the globe out of flat pictures. And we say, yes, because we don't have a round printer. And they said, why don't you have a round printer? Anyway, it goes on. It just goes on. So anyway, we stopped talking to them. So anyway, you see, we're coming over the Arctic there, and this craft is just doing a little bit of modifying of itself. And this one had a little bit more trouble getting into orbit, actually. It was less stable, it was rolling, and the concern there is that particularly the control systems for this are something that we're going to be using on slightly more important vehicles to come. We have some very important craft on their way, and there is a concern in the development department that actually we may have actually put a lot of eggs into this control system basket here, and we may not have done the research properly on them. So we're a little concerned about that. There's a lot of sort of uncontrollable roll that we're overcompensating, undercompensating, and yeah, you can see there's a lot of oscillation development, and we're going to have to develop some sort of dampening for that, or recontrol that. It may be something to do with the control systems. We're not entirely sure. So there we go. This craft goes into an orbit very similar to its sister. Not on the same orbit, obviously, just the same inclination. And this again also has those X-band antenna that's going to help us carry out communications. And that's pretty much it. That's its job. It's going to be communications, science, and imaging. And it's going to be hopefully up there for a few years, like its sister craft. And we do have some others, and they're going to spend a few years up there gathering as much data as possible. But from me, from the Enlightenment program, until next time, have a great one.